Well, as things progress on the world's trade stage, I think Putin's going to get more and more backed into a corner. And it may be that this whole damn thing is just some kind of orchestrated show, for all I know, because sometimes, if you look back in history, I think a lot of things were an orchestrated show. And it's like there's game players behind the scenes or chess players behind the scenes that are actually playing on a chessboard that are manipulating things a certain way towards certain goals. And a lot of the goals are global government. But I think what's coming up here, though, is that Putin does have a few more aces, and he's going to play them out. And some of those aces are with Iran, for instance, actually arming Iran, too, even with strategic missiles for their air defenses. And besides some of the current things that have already happened, where there's direct trade with Iran and Russia and Iran and China for oil, and they're bypassing the U.S. dollar. But the other thing is, I'm going to tell you, though, it's not that simple, though. Some of the aces that Vladimir Putin can play also is that he can actually say, I do not want to accept U.S. dollars for my oil. But the problem is they're heavily dependent. Russia is also heavily dependent upon imports from the West, which includes a lot of agricultural products. And actually, since the beginning of the Putin regime, I'll put it that way, since he was elected originally, the agricultural output of Russia is only a tiny fraction of what it was. So while Russia was building up its oil and natural gas and betting heavy that way, all due to the dictates of Vladimir Putin, one of the big problems is they haven't diversified their economy. And they're still very heavily dependent upon imports, and now they're getting a hell of a lot less money for oil. So, it's not quite that simple. But I think one of the big aces that Russia has, besides attempting to try to demand other currencies for its oil, is actually its strategic partnership with Iran. And, Obozo, our president, I hate this. This guy is so, I don't know what the deal is with Obama, man. It's almost like, one thing I do know with Iran is that they have threatened death to America, destruction of America, and all this other stuff. And even though they say they're a peaceful nation for so many years, when they're openly calling for death to America and destruction of America, and I'm thinking to myself, that's like kind of a no-brainer. You don't want these guys to have nukes. And I think the Russians already have given them nukes, to tell you the truth. But the other thing is, the U.S. has stopped, or, along with Russia, stopped the sale of these S-300 anti-aircraft missiles to Iran. And Putin could say, well, screw it, we're going to let them go through anyway. And I don't even know what the hell they got. I don't know if they can even measure by satellite exactly what Iran has. They got this uranium enrichment program. Russia could just say, well, hell, here's the uranium, all the uranium you want. You want some nukes? Here's some nukes. Really. I really don't know what these guys, you really don't know what the hell they do. Actually, Iran could already have the nukes. So I think that's Putin's ace. His ace is actually not just, we want to have other than U.S. dollars for our oil, but I think a strategic partnership with Iran is actually his ace in the hole. But it may be what the New World Order is planning all along, too. They're backing this guy in the corner for a reason. Now, the ruble, though, is getting destroyed. Actually, since the ruble's way the hell down here where you see this big arrow is going down into oblivion. But that doesn't mean that trend is going to continue forever. It's almost like we're looking at the U.S. dollar. It's on a tear. It's on a tear. That doesn't mean the U.S. dollar is going to have a major freaking destruction of decline. It's going to nothing. But the pendulum could be swinging. It could be starting to swing. It's almost like, how high is high? And once you're on the top, what direction do you go? Can you still keep going up? And, everybody thinks, yeah, sure. But, it's almost like the pendulum could be swinging for the U.S. dollar right now. But if this chart was the U.S. dollar, which it's not, it's the ruble. If it was, can you imagine with Rivero would be saying, or Gerald Celente about the U.S. You never hear the end of it, man. You never hear the end of it. But situation, it's not such situation. It's actually Russia. You know, all these people that are actually praising Russia left and right. I mean, God. You know, the problem is when it was under Vladimir Putin, the other problem is that they have not developed and diversified their economy. As a matter of fact, the whole Russian stock market, actually Apple, just one stock ticker, Apple, is worth more now than the entire Russian stock market, believe it or not. That's because it's all lopsided by a few oligarchs on the top. But the problem is with that deal is that a lot of times when you have a situation like that, they can actually set off a lot more policies that can lead to global confrontation. And actually, with Obama calling Putin a jackass, the G20 summit just recently here, I don't know if that was orchestrated or what, but I know it's bad karma for, you know, what's going to be coming up next. But anyway, here back in the USA, where we have freedom to wear painted-on pants in New York City and stroll the street and not be harassed or anything like that, you know, if this was Vladimir Putin land, she'd probably be arrested by the KGB or something like that. You know, here in the USA, despite all the garbage that, you know, that goes on, I mean, there's some bad things here and there and stuff. For the most part, we do have a hell of a lot more freedoms, no doubt. I mean, a lot of people just don't see it from their computer in their armchair because it's not as bad here as a lot of people think, you know, despite, you know, some of the stuff the cops do and all this other junk. But for the most part, we do have a hell of a lot more freedoms than in the freaking Soviet Union or Russia, whatever you call it today, or China. But what we got coming up for the future might be a slippery slope slide down to more socialism as we get old mod pants here from painted pants to mod pants. I could imagine Hillary Clinton wearing some painted pants. Now, that would be a scary freaking thought, alien from the future, you know. But, you know, what I think that's coming up, though, is that the situation in the United States is actually coming to a pendulum where you're going to start seeing the dollar decline a little bit. It's going to start going the other way. Not that it's going to go away, but we have these cycles. And the market's been on a tear for a long time. The equities markets have been on a tear a long time. The dollar's been way the hell up there. It's going to change. But what's not going to change is we always got these bozos on the very top of political life that are nothing about ego and themselves. And I just want to put this out there. It's not like I got to pick one person or the other. Actually, between these two people, this is one time I probably would pick Vladimir Putin. But the point is, I don't like either one of them, man. That's my whole point. I don't like either one of them. You know, here in the United States, we don't worship freaking leaders, man. What we are about is we can do our own thing, just like Pussy Riot does their own thing in front of the KGB-controlled Orthodox Church in Russia, man. A lot of people said that was disrespectful, but I also realize, you know, religion is a tool of the state to control the people. If you're actually spiritual, you don't really need formal religion. You don't need to have, you know, trillions of dollars worth of gold invested into some buildings and stuff like that with a bunch of people that are playing like they're holy, you know, getting wealthy and running a racket. And, you know, that was one cool thing, I guess, you know, just ad-libbing here a little bit that Pussy Riot did call out to, is that, you know, it's a big charade. And politics is a big damn charade, too. Politics itself, politics and religion are both a big damn charade. That's why we don't need them. That's what I'm telling you right now. But anyway, as far as what's going on, as far as Putin's ace, his ace actually is the oil. And if you look at what's going on with China, they're doing a lot of direct trade. And Russia's also going to be playing that game, too, as much as possible. But they really can't do that easily, because if Putin didn't screw up the freaking economy in Russia, and the way he screwed it up was this. He caused, in other words, the agricultural output of Russia is only a tiny fraction of what it was at the outset of when the Putin regime came into play. It is. I forgot exactly what it is, but it's not even like a quarter of what it is. Their agricultural output in Russia is very minuscule compared to what it was 15 years ago. And that's because of the high concentration of effort put into oil and natural gas by the state. So they have to import a lot of their foodstuffs. And you know what? That's where demand for dollars can come into play, because a lot of it, or euros, a lot of it's coming from the West. A lot of it's coming from the West. And the West is going to say, I don't want rubles for that. You're not going to pay me rubles for that. I want dollars. So it's causing Russia to have adequate amount of U.S. dollar reserves on hand, which might even cause them to sell some of their gold, because they got such a big trade imbalance right now due to the low oil prices. But part of the way they're trying to push back is direct trade for oil. Like in China, for instance, actually China gets most of their oil from Saudi. You can see it right here, right? Saudi. But Saudi charges charges the Chinese a different price than they charge the West. They'll charge the United States less money, but they'll charge China more money, even though one's closer than the other. Go figure. Go figure. The other thing is, another big player where China gets a lot of oil from is Iran. And they're doing direct trade right there. Iran is getting goods, bypassing the dollar directly for oil. They're getting oil directly, they're sending oil, and they're getting goods in direct exchange. Another major player with China is Venezuela. That's where they get a lot of their oil from, besides Russia and Russia. Venezuela is looking like they're ready to collapse in any time. If you see what happened with the Bolivar, man, it's freaking out. And it's amazing that the situation's going like this, because I almost suspect that a lot of these markets are being held up with computers only, algorithms and bots trading with each other. I don't even think it's a free market that's going on. I think the whole damn thing it's not even actually the physical market forces that are causing these prices to happen, but it's actually web bots and algorithms and computers. And that is where I'm a little bit stumped as to how far this can actually keep going. But China doesn't really have as strong of an economy as a lot of people think in a lot of ways, because even though they say they passed up the United States, if you look at their domestic economy, it's very, very weak. And also you look at what's going on across the broad-based population. A lot of people don't have that much money at all. There's actually a hell of a lot more financial power in the United States, but there is a policy by the globalists to deindustrialize the United States and spread out and even out everything across the world. That's part of the globalist plan. So I also tend to believe that even though Putin's being backed into a corner, that it may be part of the globalist plan to lead to a confrontation, which will maybe lead to a global government. But I think it's in the cards for the oil prices to start going up, even though tonight you're looking at the prices of oil go down below $75. But it could be in the cards that the price of oil is going up. See, when people are resigned that the oil, even in Texas, they're actually resigned right now that the oil price is going to stay low. They're always going to stay low. Kind of have doubts about that. And the one thing that also points to this fact that they're not going to stay low is they took all the, the nuclear generators offline from Japan and Germany. They're actually starting to try to put them back online again. But that has actually taken up a lot more demand for natural gas, crude oil, to power up all the electricity that was actually formerly being produced by nuclear energy. Plus, there's a lot more emerging nations that are becoming more industrialized, even though the emerging nations are look like they're getting clobbered with their currencies and all that type of stuff, there's still a lot more of a middle class being built up in emerging nations, which is creating a demand for oil. The problem is the inverse relationship between the price of oil and the strength of dollar is portends what the future is going to be. Because right now, we're looking at a very strong dollar, and the dollar's up to 87.74, and we're looking at a very weak oil prices. But that's pretty much how it works with oil and gold. There's an inverse. In other words, oil and gold pretty much, well, they don't run in unison perfectly together, but there's a little bit of a relationship, just a fairly decent correlation between oil and gold. But there's a fairly decent inverse relationship between the strength of the dollar and oil, and also a fairly decent inverse relationship between the strength of the dollar and gold. And that pendulum is probably going to trend. A trend is probably going to change. And I think oil prices are on the way up, which unfortunately is going to give a lot more strength to Russia and Iran. So, but the thing is, I don't understand is how the dollar is being held up right now, because when oil prices are very low, that creates less demand for dollars. What's going on is the fact that the dollar's been going up, it's been creating more of a demand for dollars. In other words, people see it going up and going up, going up, but once they start seeing it going down, there could be a push down a lot faster, where people are basically, running out of it because they're seeing a downward slide, just like they're seeing a downward slide on the ruble, right? So the situation, when the pendulum starts to swing, it could be start to swing pretty hard, but it doesn't start swinging right away very fast. It's kind of like in limbo right now, just like probably where Pussy Riot's going to be if they ever expire, And there'll be a judgment day for them too, I mean, freedom of expression is one thing, but you could be going a little bit too far, But anyway, there's no doubt where these two would be going now. They'd be going to hell. Putin and Hillary. But anyway, I just want to put it out to you, though, that Putin does have some more aces up his sleeve. And the aces he has is Iran and also arming Iran. That's really his ace. It's also direct trade for oil, but he doesn't have as much maneuverability there because the problem is with direct trade for oil, he's got a lot of imports he must import into the country because he didn't diversify the economy. But he could arm the hell out of Iran. And that could be a major problem, man. That could be a major, major problem. And see, an armed Iran could lead to, I don't know what, because once things really, really go off in the Middle East, like we're seeing destruction of oil refineries, you're going to see the price of oil go to some astronomical levels like you wouldn't believe. Even though we don't need this stuff, there's probably all kinds of alternative energy out there that's suppressed. And you know what? Necessity is going to be the mother of all invention. That'll be the final spike for oil, believe me. Because after that, the cat will come out of the bag, as for so to speak, where people are going to figure out all this alternative energy, and it's going to, once your back is pushed to the wall. But I think what will happen, though, is the way the cards are being played out, whether it's by design or it's just stupidity, but I tend to think it's by design. I think Vladimir Putin is actually deliberately being pushed in a corner by design, and it all fits with the globalist agenda. If they were really looking to get after Russia per se or China per se or whatever like the West was, they're not. They want to keep those big regions together because big regions are easier to meld into a new world order. So they will keep Russia intact. They will keep China intact. But what may happen is I think Russia's going to play its ace, and its ace is a strategic alliance with Iran. And they're going to arm them to the max with nukes and these S-300 missiles and all this type of stuff. And that's a bad formula for the future, man. But it's probably going to lead to much higher commodity prices. The pendulum is swinging very slowly, but when it starts moving up, and once it starts taking a life of its own, it's going to move like so quick that you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. So, anyway, just hang on in there, man, because Putin actually is going to be one of the things that's going to freaking make you wealthy with the metals. This guy here, he needs the high oil prices, which is going to lead to higher gold prices, which is going to lead to higher silver prices. So that's the way it's going to play out, I think. And it's not. There's only so much that computer algorithms are going to do, because I think that's what's holding up the dollar right now. I'll tell you the truth. Unfortunately. Well, I just think of it like this. We just need to go back to hard currencies and hell with the bullshit. And if we want to walk around in New York City with painted on pants, I mean, this is freedom. This is not Tehran. This is New York City. We can do what the hell we want. We got freedom of expression over here, and nobody bothers anybody over here as long as you do your own thing. So that's all I got to say about that.